My name is Nico. Um, I discovered IASIS through my therapist. Um, I started going, or before I say a lot about my experience, I started going to therapy because of an event that happened in my life, which was a breakup. But that wasn't the problem. The main problem in my life was the fact that I was dealing with an issue where um, I felt despair for almost no reason at all. And this would happen throughout my whole life. I had my first uh, panic attack, if you'll call it, when I was about 11 years old. And since that day, especially at nighttime, it would just, that feeling would come, and I can't describe that feeling in words. It's just imagine the scariest thing you've ever done, and imagine having not to experience that, but to experience the fear over and over and over again. So my life basically revolved around that fear, and it made me a very introverted person. It made me very antisocial. I didn't really want to do anything but smoke pot, and I was doing that every single day. So I used the relationship that I was in for 3.5 years to numb that, and this person was what gave me the strength to live with this condition. So once that was gone out of my life, this was the first time in my adult life that I had to deal with this problem, and not having that person there made me feel as if I always felt like I wanted to not die, but just not feel this anymore. But that really threw me over the edge and made me feel as if I would never get better. So I started going to therapy, and she referred me to IASIS Micro Current Neurofeedback. And you know, I would try anything. I've tried a lot of things, so this was just another thing I was willing to try. And
And what happened? What was your experience after you started doing the IASIS?
it's a very slow process, and I feel like the first session was really like a jumpstart. I just from that first session, I could feel something change. Like when I was talking about those panic attacks that I get, it's like I always imagine it as a really devastating blow, as a punch. And I remember leaving here after that first session, and it was still there, but I could feel it. Just the edge was taken off a little bit. And I mean, after going the second and third time, it wasn't as strong, but I've come maybe, I want to say 10 times, and I've really noticed that. Again, this is really hard to put into words because these are all just feelings. But when I'm alone, when I'm driving, or when I knew I was gonna get these attacks, my life revolved around it. And now that I I still get them, don't get me wrong, but I want to say it's maybe a tenth of the amount, and it's not a dagger that stabs into me anymore. It's more like I don't know, like a noodle, like a soft noodle.
And you had mentioned something about your awareness when you started to feel one come on, that you felt yourself shift out of it.
So the thing that really amazes me about this is throughout my whole life, my adult life, I always had a very hard time going out, having fun with friends. And I mean, I'd still force myself to do it sometimes, but I would get the same feeling every time, and it wasn't the same as getting these panic attacks. What would happen is I would start to go do these things with my friends, like go out to a club or a bar or something, and I'd sit in the car, and the feeling that I would get is that I would rather die than go do this right now. Like I felt unsafe, and it felt like I was going to war. I know that sounds really exaggerative, but that's how I felt. I felt like I was gonna go fight on a battlefield. And last night I went out, and it's been such a long time that I've done that I forgot that this feeling even happened. So when I was on my way to going to do what I was gonna do, I started to get this feeling, and I remembered why I never do these kinds of things, and I started to think like, man, I really don't want to do this. And I kept going, and I want to say maybe like after 5 or 10 minutes of feeling that, it was like a sheet being lifted off of my brain. It was gone, and it was the first time in my life I was able to go to like a big social gathering and really enjoy myself, and just not have that fear, whatever you want to call it, that feeling that I don't want to be here. I don't know, I can't explain why that happened, but it did.
So Nico, if you knew someone that was kind of on the fence, unsure whether they should give this a shot, what would you say to them?
I'd say that if you do try this out, it's not going to be overnight that you feel better, and it's going to be really difficult, but if someone would have told me that I wouldn't ever feel that way, or that I'd be a normal person, or that I'd be able to function, I wouldn't have ever, no one could have ever convinced me of that. And if you feel that despair in your life, if you think that there's nothing that can be done, you're wrong. Because this helped me, and I've tried everything.